All right, everybody. It looks like we're back for another book review. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, I am here to review book number 2 in Brian Lumley's Necroscope, Vamphyri. Not just vampire, but Vamphyri. That's right. Check out my review of Necroscope on my channel. That was book 1. First of all, we always review the covers, right, folks? We always review these covers. You know I love graphic design and I love book cover illustration. I love these book covers more than you can know. I love the fact that these just look like they stepped right out of the 1980s because they were written in 1988 and 1989. So they did step right out of the 80s. From the font that they used to the wacky heavy metal typeface to the cool skull paintings that Bob Eggleton did. Yeah, Bob Eggleton was the illustrator that illustrated all of the Brian Lumley vampire books. And he did a great job on all of these. These are all dynamite book covers. Anyway, I met Bob Eggleton at the Writers of the Future competition back when I did illustrations back in college when I was doing illustrations for Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. I won a competition called Illustrators of the Future, and Bob Eggleton, the guy that did these covers, was the guy that presented me with my award. So I always remember him from that, and he does great illustrations. And not only that, but since we're name dropping, you know that if I have ever had books signed by the authors, and I met Brian Lumley too. I met him at the World Fantasy Convention in Tempe, Arizona in 2004. He signed some of my books. Anyway. Let's talk about Vamphyri, book number 2 in Necroscope. What is it about? It's about vampires. Russian vampires. It's about the Cold War. Imagine Robert Ludlum's Bourne Identity books combined with stuff about Vlad the Impaler and just Cold War espionage, like John Le Carré Cold War espionage novel. That's what it's a mashup of those things. That's why I like it. I mean, it is written in the 80s, so it's dated. The technology's dated. There's a lot of things that are dated about these books, but I love rereading stuff from that era because I grew up in that era. I love everything 80s, including these vampire novels by Brian Lumley. It's got just a lot of Cold War spycraft mixed in with the most badass vampires ever written. And just some of the most badass Russian mafia goons ever written. And some of the great American heroes that have to fight all of this stuff. Like Harry Keogh, who was our main guy from book 1, which you can see my review of that elsewhere on the channel. But anyway, Harry Keogh and Dragonassi were the main two, the protagonist and villain in the first book, Necroscope. And you know, I always pronounce Dragonassi. It's not Dragonassi. I have been corrected many times on this channel. His name was not Dragonassi. It was Dragosani. So, Harry Keogh versus Dragosani, the Russian Necroscope. The guy who messes with dead things and brings them back to life. And he's a necromancer. You know, the Dragonassi's the necromancer. Harry Keogh is the Necroscope. He's the one that can talk to the dead. And anyway, because vampires are dead. They're undead. I mean, they're creatures. They're just badass creatures. And now, I don't want to give spoilers away for book 1. Let's just say there's a big climax at the end of book 1 that leaves our main villain and our main protagonist, Harry Keogh and Dragonassi. No, I just keep doing it wrong. Dragosani. Anyway, what happens to these guys? Well, Harry becomes even a more powerful supernatural being. And that's the one drawback of this, is I liked the more grounded in reality Harry from book 1. This Harry can sort of like teleport himself at a snap of a finger to anywhere on the planet. I don't know if I really dug that part of it, but if you can overlook that like real convenient thing for the plot, then you still are left with a super badass vampire Cold War espionage thriller with new villains, better villains, more vampire lore than you can ever imagine is packed into this. Vampire lore, werewolf lore, spycraft, all of these things, and we're on to a new adventure where the Russians are using these very, 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 very evil vampires to do their dirty work and cause mayhem for the world, mostly mayhem in, Europe, which is cool. I love the European settings. And I thought that Vamphyri, book number 2 in the Necroscope series, built upon the vampire lore. And it's just, if I remember correctly throughout because I haven't read these in forever. If I remember, we build up. It's just one builds upon the other, and we learn more about the history of the vampires and more about the history of the vampires with each succeeding book. And that's what we're getting here. Now, there's something like 14 books in this series. I've only read the first 5. I just ordered the next 3. So I will be getting those soon in the mail, hopefully, and then we can, and we'll see how far I get in the series. Anyway, Vamphyri, bloody, gruesome horror fun. That's all it is. That's what we're dealing here. Nothing serious, nothing mind-bending, nothing mind-blowing, this isn't literary fiction. This is just horror from the 80s that's bloody, gruesome fun. And I give book number 2 an 8.5 for just being the badass thing that it is.